I had body positivity on my phone telling me that it was beautiful to be obese, and friends and doctors and therapists telling me that it was healthy and beautiful. I didn't understand that I had a problem because so many people and so much social media was telling me that it was okay and validating my feelings and telling me that processed food was good food. And so I had to really come to terms with, look, I know I'm unhealthy. I know I'm ugly. I don't recognize myself. I am overweight. I'm really overweight. So overweight that I can't even walk up the steps anymore. I've got, anxiety, depression, panic attacks every day. I can't function anymore. I'm sleeping until 12 p.m. I'm going to bed at 12 a.m. I was self-harming. There were points of my life and time where I didn't want to live anymore. And I considered doing really, really bad things just because I didn't want to be here anymore, because I was so addicted to food and that was my outlet.
From the Westn A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. An addiction to ultra-processed foods had a teenage girl behaving like a drug addict, hiding food around her house, getting her fix at school and the neighborhood 7-Eleven, and feeling miserable and lost. She was 15 years old and weighed over 300 pounds. And she didn't know who she was anymore. This is episode 531, and our guests today are Helene, Leeds, and Penelope Popken. Penelope and Helene are mother and daughter, and together they have had breakthroughs in healing multi-generational compulsive eating disorders. They both have overcome struggles with obesity and are on a mission to end obesity by resolving the underlying issues that caused the weight gain in the first place. They've created the Step It Up program that guides you into a new life, step by step, toward more delicious food, exercise, and a healthy lifestyle. Today they discuss Penelope's healing journey, and her mom's as well. But Penelope's was the most dramatic. They talk about what led to Penelope's struggles with weight and the drugs she took, the mostly unhelpful therapist recommendations, and more. They also go over how most weight loss drugs, including Ozempic, by the way, and other quick fixes like gastric bypass surgeries and so forth, have dire consequences. And they cover what it took for Penelope to turn things around. By the way, her healing path included not just returning to real nourishing food, but addressing dysfunctional family patterns that were contributing to unhealthy behavior. This is the 4th episode in our young adult series this spring. We are talking with young adults and also discussing topics that are particularly relevant to them. Before we get into the conversation, I want to invite you to our Wise Traditions Conference this October in Utah. I am so excited. All you have to do to sign up is go to wisetraditions.org and join us. It's like a family reunion. We eat Wise Traditions friendly food, as you can imagine. We hear from top speakers like Mark and Sam Bailey, Dr. Tom Cowan, Sally Fallon Morell, and others. Plus, there are fantastic conversations just around the table. Even if you didn't go to a single session, you would get something out of it. So sign up today. Again, go to wisetraditions.org. This is the conference that nourishes in every way. I hope to see you there. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Helene and Penelope.
Thank you.
Thank
So happy to be
you.
here.
I'm happy to have you all. Penelope, you weighed over 300 pounds when you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
Take us back to a moment when you were going to go to school. How did it feel as you were waking up that day?
I remember not wanting to wake up that day. I remember feeling like I couldn't get out of bed because I was so heavy, and it felt like a workout just to get up. And I didn't want to get up. I wanted to stay in my dark room on my phone, eating the junk food that I loved so much and was so addicted to. I really remember that. and then being embarrassed to put clothes on because I didn't have any clothes that I liked because I didn't really like how I looked. And I didn't recognize myself in the mirror anymore when I would see myself. I was like, who is this girl? I just wore like big oversized hoodies and I was just ashamed and scared.
You had panic attacks. I mean, you couldn't go to school. I honestly thought you were going to drop out of high school.
I almost wanted to. I almost did. I contemplated a lot. I even contemplated getting emancipated, actually, just so I didn't have to go to school anymore.
I remember.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, how was it that you ended up in that dark spot, so heavy, so discouraged, so embarrassed, Penelope?
The ultra processed foods at school were the place I got my hit of junk food. So it wasn't at home. My mom's been healthy my whole life. But at the age of 4 years old, when we moved to America from Europe, because I was born in Switzerland, actually, I became addicted to ultra processed foods at my friend's house and at school. They would serve cheese balls at school. They would serve Oreos and chips and pizza. And I never had that stuff in Europe. In fact, in Europe, they have like eggs in little mailboxes. And, we had a little dairy at the bottom of our hill. But when we moved to America, I just got really addicted. And I'd have like 6 slices of pizza at age 6 years old. And the parents would call my mom, and be like, is there something wrong with your daughter? Like, why is she eating so much food? And then I would like not really eat when I came home. So you were confused on how I was gaining weight.
I was so confused. And, I think it's little by little. It didn't start out that way. And at a certain point, we try as moms to be healthy. We give our kids the right things. And then at a certain point, we really don't have full control. And by that time, I think she got into this really bad pattern. I mean, it's much worse than the word bad, but she was begging her friends. She was borrowing money. And she was stealing ultimately. I mean, really acting like an addict. And I think I was so confused, in denial, and blindsided because I am such a health advocate. And I've been a health advocate. Penelope sees me training thousands of health coaches and helping people to reverse their chronic disease. And her whole life, she's been surrounded by health neurotics and, kind of health wacko people. and I guess that's how she just chose her autonomy. And for the moms out there who are listening, it's really way more dangerous than I realized. I thought a little bit was okay, and it's really not. I had no idea until actually recently when I started to get degrees in. I have a bachelor's and a master's in nutrition, but then I also got degrees in nutritional psychology to really understand these hippocampal pathways and the gut-brain axis, and to really, because of all people that this could have happened to, it couldn't have happened to my daughter. I mean, my mom died actually of severe obesity. It was on her death certificate, and she was only 59. So much of my life has been stolen by obesity with my own chronic eating problems. And then now Penelope, which I thought for sure we were going to dodge that bullet. I was so prepared.
Wow. And now what's interesting to me is you both have used words that are usually related to drug addiction. You said, Penelope, I got my hit at school and I was addicted, and you were also, Helene, reinforcing that kind of language. When did you realize you were out of control, Penelope?
I probably realized that when we moved to California. I was like 12 and I just couldn't stop eating. Like I just went back and I would steal money from my mom. I'd find cash. I would leave school early. I would hide food in my room. I even hid food in the treasure chests in the trash can outside. I would do anything. Like I would hide food everywhere I could just so I could get it. And then I wouldn't eat in front of my mom anymore. I stopped eating with my mom. I stopped eating meals with her and I just ate everything in my room. We had a 7-Eleven at the bottom of our hill, and I would walk down to that 7-Eleven, get all my junk food. I would kind of either throw away the trash in the trash can there so it wouldn't be at the house. I had DoorDash on speed dial when she left the house. It would come right when she left. Like I hacked every system just so I could get my hit of junk food.
Yes. And Helene, no wonder you were confused because your daughter was basically hiding the evidence.
Yeah, until I got, of course, the credit card bills. I'm like, wait, why is there $600 on DoorDash? I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Where's all the cash? And so if anyone's ever dealt with an addict, that they know that it's really challenging, and there's only so much you can do, and it's really challenging. And I know we're not just an N of one. I mean, there are millions of moms who have obese children who themselves have dysregulated eating patterns, and this has to end. It has to stop. And I had the means to help her. She was in therapy. We had the right food, all the things. And it wasn't enough because this addiction piece was so strong. And, it's interesting because you go to like the food specialists and they tell you, oh, don't talk about it. Even the doctor, don't talk about it. And you're making it worse. And I think that was the thing that got us really wanting to be advocates for this, because that wasn't okay. And they were ill-equipped to give her the solutions because they didn't have the knowledge that the Weston A. Price Foundation is disseminating. They didn't have the knowledge of healing traditions. They didn't understand that the junk food at the therapy office was part of the problem. That's where one of the places she would load up, come to
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah. Wednesdays we had group therapy, and they would have the junk food there. And then on Mondays on regular therapy, the therapist would say, Penelope, it's fine. Eat junk food, eat Cheerios, eat Oreos. All food is good food, Penelope. There's no such thing as bad food. I try to talk to her like, hey, do I have an eating problem? Like, I'm eating all the time and I'm like, I look really different and I don't recognize myself. She's like, no, Penelope, you're fine. You're okay. You're healthy. Everything's fine. There's no such thing as bad food. And she kept reinstilling that in my mind to the point where I believed her. And then I would fight my mom and be like, no, mom, all food is good food. And she'd look at me like, what are you talking about?
Oh my goodness. So the professionals were giving you the opposite of what you needed. And maybe because they also didn't have an understanding about nutrient dense foods, like you were saying, Helene. But let's back up for a second. So, Penelope, you've been very vulnerable and forthcoming about your own struggles. And you hinted, Helene, that you had your own. What did your disordered eating look like?
Well, I grew up in a disordered eating household. So my mom was in Weight Watchers. She was losing and gaining 100 pounds at a time. And she was in Overeaters Anonymous. So the 12-step program was on our kitchen table. So I grew up with the backdrop of this in my life, going to meetings. Because at that time, you went to 3 meetings a week and abstinence was flour and sugar. And so I also was in a wheelchair when I was 7. I had this rare bone infection called osteomyelitis that they thought was leukemia. It took them a long time to find it.
Oh,
But I had a lot of illness in my childhood that had me come to certain realizations about how food could heal and food could harm. Food was celebration. And then I just had this really deep interest in learning about food as medicine because I actually was one of the original plus size models with Ford in the 90s. And I got spotted when I was 14 or 15, but I was still plus size. I was always pudgy. My nickname was Fatso. I was the only third grader that was 100 pounds. I was just always overweight. And it wasn't until I had you that I started to really, trim down. And it wasn't like I was morbidly obese, but I always was carrying the extra, 40 pounds. And it just led me on this journey to learn more actually through my skin. I had really horrific acne, and being a model at that time at the level with Ford models in New York City, traveling around the world, it was challenging, to continue to work. And that's where I went to Germany, and doctor said, you need to clean your blood. And I thought, what does that mean? I didn't understand at the time. I was still in the Western mindset of, doctors know best. And then I just started to study and study and study and study, and I haven't stopped. And it's been over 30 years, and I've really started to understand how to reverse chronic disease, and have gotten involved in miraculous transformations of diabetes reversal, cancer reversal, cardiovascular disease reversal, cognitive decline reversal. It's just blown my mind. I've witnessed so many miracles that I can't even count anymore. It is just, it's so clear, and the evidence is embarrassingly simple. And you just have to learn how to strategically use the natural kingdom, I call it, to really heal the body from the inside out.
oh my goodness. Okay, so going back to Penelope's story, you said they were telling you, well, and then both of you, they were telling you don't talk about it. They were telling you all food is good food. And your mom also wasn't understanding what was going on. When did the light bulb go off for you about this natural kingdom stuff that your mom's talking about, Penelope?
This happened for me when COVID hit and I had to see myself in the mirror every day and I was stuck with myself and I was really, really having to look at myself every day and, be with myself only all day because we're in lockdown. And one day I look in the mirror and I just say, wow, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't recognize myself. I don't like how I feel. But what's really interesting, Hilda, is that I had body positivity on my phone telling me that it was beautiful to be obese, and friends and doctors and therapists telling me that it was healthy and beautiful. I didn't understand that I had a problem because so many people and so much social media was telling me that it was okay and validating my feelings and telling me that processed food was good food. And so I had to really come to terms with, look, I know I'm unhealthy. I know I'm ugly. I don't recognize myself. I am overweight. I'm really overweight. So overweight that I can't even walk up the steps anymore. I've got, anxiety, depression, panic attacks every day. I can't function anymore. I'm sleeping until 12 p.m. I'm going to bed at 12 a.m. I was self-harming. There were points of my life and time where I didn't want to live anymore. And I considered doing really, really bad things just because I didn't want to be here anymore because I was so addicted to food and that was my outlet. And that was when I realized that day I looked in the mirror, I was like, okay, I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to make my favorite junk food at home using whole ingredients, which was like 2 double cheeseburgers and 2 milkshakes. And I just made it at home. Just started using Greek yogurt for my milkshakes. And I just started using lettuce buns. And that's why we call it Step It Up, actually, because we just step up one thing at a time, walking more, moving more, drinking more water. And that's how I got the weight off naturally with actually no loose skin.
Yeah. And what's interesting because like her supply chain was cut off, right? She couldn't go to she couldn't go
I
to
couldn't go to
7-Eleven
school.
and she couldn't go to school.
And I couldn't go to my friends' houses. So when my friends were feeding me junk food and eating a bunch of junk food, I couldn't do that with them anymore.
Right. Now, you could have walked down the hill to 7-Eleven or kept up with the DoorDash, but everything changed. And I imagine your mom was home more. So, Helene, did you two talk about it?
I mean, it was really like a come to Jesus moment. I mean, there's a certain point where if your kid is addicted and they're suicidal and they either, and you just, nothing's working. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It's like, you just come to your knees and you're just like, what am I mean, it's my responsibility. I'm enabling her clearly. And it's just so infuriating and frustrating and paralyzing and overwhelming. And it was like a real come to Jesus moment where you're just like, what do I do, God? And it was instantaneous. It really was. I literally fell to my knees, and there were moments where I would like fight with her to like, open the curtains and get out of bed, and she'd be like slamming the door in my face. I'm like, something's going to break here. I'm going to lose a nose. I'm going to break a finger, but I am not letting go of this door. I'm saying goodnight, or whatever it is, She actually opened the door and she walked out. She sat down at the table and she's like, Mom, I want to change. And so our first breakthrough really was just sitting at the table having a meal together and us working through, her, you're judging me, how much ketchup I'm using or whatever it was. And so we just had to work through all of these levels of resistance and confrontation. And I do believe our children are gaining autonomy in the thing that we're attached to. So we have to, check in on that. And I do believe our children are representations of our unexpressed subconscious patterns that need to be looked at, that we need to bring light to. And so this just happened to be a really intense, deep, dark one. And luckily I didn't lose her. And for all the moms out there who are struggling with something similar, it's not the thing you want to talk about with your friends. I get it. And there isn't a lot of help out there. So it's something that we do need to come together, and we shouldn't be wearing the scarlet letter. We really need to be joining forces, making healthy food taste delicious. I mean, Penelope said, she's like, Mom, if I knew it would taste this good, I would have started a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's key. People who gain weight tend to really love food. And so why not just give them the food that's going to actually nourish their cells and not leave them feeling starving all the time? And when we're hearing this conversation about Ozempic and other weight loss medications, it's just terrifying because we just don't know the full story. And to even think or concede that that could be the first line of defense is unacceptable.
Yes. Okay. I want to talk about Ozempic, but I have one more question. Could you tell Penelope that junk food, apart from the weight issue, was unsatisfying?
Yeah, because I always wanted more of it. So it didn't matter how much I ate. It didn't matter how many cheeseburgers or how much French fries or how many milkshakes or how much ice cream. I always wanted more. I'd eat a whole loaf of bread and still be hungry. But I wasn't actually hungry. My cells were just starved of that nutrients that you find in whole foods that I was just not eating. And that's why I was so hungry, but I didn't know that at the time. And they didn't teach me in school. They didn't teach us in therapy, in school. The doctors weren't talking about it. In fact, the doctor told me, Penelope, you should start eating some more bread. I'm like, looking back at that now, I'm like, why would you tell a 320-pound girl to eat more bread? I don't get it.
Well, because there's a body of research that actually says that deprivation causes binge purge eating problems, and the highest level eating disorder clinics in this country will promote that body of research. And there's another body of research that says that if you eat foods that have highly palatable foods, which that are high in fat, salt, and carbohydrates, that is the combination that will cause the bliss point in the brain that shifts it into the same kind of addiction that cocaine, heroin, and other drugs, alcohol, so these two bodies of research exist. And, for me, it's like, well, why not just set yourself up for success and just eliminate the chemicals, flour and sugar, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, genetically modified foods, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Coming up, Penelope explains the unexpected side effects from weight loss drugs that she was prescribed. And she also explains why she's glad Ozempic wasn't available at the time of her disorder.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Westn A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Optimal carnivore. Organ meats are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. But they're not always easy to source or to make tasty. This is why Optimal Carnivore started sourcing organ meats from New Zealand, one of the most pristine, cleanest environments on the planet. And they take 100% grass-fed organ meats. They dry the organs and encapsulate them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. Optimal Carnivore's products are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished and free of hormones, pesticides, antibiotics, and GMOs. And since they know that our ancestors would have eaten nose to tail, the whole animal, they have created a unique blend of 9 different organs in their grass-fed organ complex. It's a powerful combination that includes beef liver, brain, thymus, heart, kidney, spleen, pancreas, lung, and gallbladder. Optimal Carnivore is making it easy to access the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And they're taking the guesswork and the hassle out of eating organ meats. Their products are perfect for people who are traveling or still trying to develop an appreciation for organ meats, let's say. Plus, Optimal Carnivore plants 1 tree for every product sold, which is great for the environment. Optimal Carnivore has a grass-fed organ complex, as I mentioned, a grass-fed bone marrow, and a grass-fed liver product and brain nourish. Check them out at amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code Westn10 to save 10% on all products. Again, head over to amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code Westn10 to save 10% on all products. And Alive Water. Have you heard of Alive Water? They offer unprocessed spring water in reusable glass bottles. They're unique in that they don't sterilize their water with ozone or UV light, methods that typically destroy beneficial microbes. The water itself comes from 2 carefully selected springs with an ideal mineral balance, including magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium. These springs are naturally alkaline and contain a high level of silica, a rare mineral often associated with beauty and wellness. All of their water is vortexed in both directions and passed through rare precious gems just before bottling. They also offer a range of high-quality glass products like personal water bottles, cups, and more. And get this, Alive Water donates 10% of their profits to the Find a Spring Foundation, a user-generated database of cold and hot springs around the world. They also ensure that all employees are paid fair compensation. Plus, their customer service is standout. It is stellar. They offer real live support and you get a text message before each upcoming delivery. Honestly, once you fall in love with Alive Water, they've got an ambassador program that provides ongoing 10% commissions for all referred orders. So you've got to go check them out. Go to alivewaters.com and use the code WISE for 33% off your first order. Again, that's alivewaters.com and the code word WISE for 33% off your first order. This is Hoda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. addiction. And we know how nourishing real food is, and it is amazingly tasty. But given this and the fact that you shed the pounds, Penelope, eating real food, why do you think Ozempic is so promoted? Or did anyone ever wish that on you or mention that to you?
Thank goodness when I was trying to lose weight, Ozempic wasn't like approved for children because now they let 12-year-olds take Ozempic. I'm really glad that I wasn't on Ozempic because I did try other things like it, like HCG injections. I was so desperate at one point that I tried that and it actually made me gain weight. And I know there are people listening who may be really like anxious or depressed or like really wanting to do the drug because it seems easier or it seems like the solution. But I say it's like putting a band-aid on a bullet hole because it doesn't solve the root issues. And I have learned so much about myself through natural weight loss, through using whole foods that Ozempic will never teach you that. And it actually just starves the body. It doesn't make you burn fat faster or become more energized. It actually just makes people, if you see the people, they're losing bone density, they're losing their vision. Some of them are infertile, some of them there's a lot of things we don't even know
Suicidal
about
ideations,
our
thyroid
future
cancer,
generations or babies that are made from humans who've been on Ozempic. We have no idea what the long-term implications will be.
people are losing their hair. It's not good for longevity. It's starvation. I mean, so that it's slowing gut motility. And this is the thing is we don't actually know.
And the black box warning label says thyroid C cell tumors.
Mm-hmm. And the gut motility and the permanent changes in the gut microbiome, I think, are the ones that are most concerning to me because when you slow down digestion or you intentionally impair your digestion, something that I've spent the majority of my life repairing from the chronic use of antibiotics my entire childhood, you just don't want to mess with that. And for me, it's like in our program and following the Westn price methodology, you will lose weight. I mean, for us, it's like 8 to 10 pounds a month. And that's great. I mean, you can easily do that with whole nourishing foods that will give you longevity and not put you on a drug that costs over $1,000 a month for the rest of your life.
And you get zero side effects from eating whole foods and moving daily.
You get happy.
Yeah.
You get energized.
Yeah.
You get
no loose skin. If you want to prevent loose skin, you don't want to have Ozempic face.
You age well. I mean, there's lots of side effects that are
Those
really
are good side effects though.
Yeah, you never hear about these from prescription drugs.
Exactly.
Helene, I want to go back to something you said a moment ago. It wasn't just the real foods, although obviously that did a lot for you both. It's done a lot for all of us, actually. You also were talking about doing some work to understand the patterns of your family, maybe emotional eating or what was at the root of the psychology behind turning to food for comfort and whatnot, right? Did you do some that kind of work as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a big part of our methodology is movement is medicine and emotional regulation. And I think without really examining this piece to the equation in any health crisis, we're really overstepping something that's incredibly valuable. And one of the ways that, one of the things we realized in our family is that there's a scarcity context, and that may not even, it's not even real, but it was real for my grandmother and your great grandmother, very real. And so we have to work on really aligning with what's true. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to get out in the sunshine, is to eat real food, is to have real conversations and relationships of people who are willing to be honest with you about what's true and what's real and be a stand for your greatness. And I think all of these are ingredients, in the equation of vitality, health, longevity, happiness, wholeness. And so, we had to really look at this. And a lot of the times we do this movement practice that's both structured and unstructured movement with sound that we make as well as sound from the music. And it's kind of tribal, I'd say, and very emotive and engaging. And it really helps us to work through the emotions. We have these classes in our program, but also just finding other ways to regulate the emotions because stuffing them down with food is just, it's not a long-term strategy and it's just not viable.
Yeah, Penelope, your mom was saying, it's important to have someone by you speaking the truth over you when you're dejected and feeling like your life isn't worth living. Obviously, your mom was that for you. Was there anyone else around you, Penelope, that was bringing that light and love and support to you?
Honestly, no. My mom was my accountability partner, my coach, my everything, and I believe that we're not meant to lose weight alone. And studies even back this up that, partnership in weight loss, whether it's a friend, a buddy, an accountability partner, is the way to go because food is like an addiction. When you're addicted to food, when you're morbidly obese, usually there's some kind of addiction there, and you need somebody to meet with every day or talk to every day or check in with every day, like, hey, I'm feeling low. Okay, well, then let's strategize and do something different. Or, hey, this isn't working for me. Because on the journey, there's so many highs and lows, and you need someone there. And my mom was there for me the whole time. But I actually lost a lot of friends on my weight loss journey because of the weight loss, because I wasn't indulging in the same behaviors. And I think that really does come with weight loss. You do lose friends that were enabling behaviors or didn't want the best for you. And you realize that. And that is painful for sure.
Helene, did you see that happening to Penelope?
Oh yeah. I mean, the people who were around her, and there were some kind of strange power dynamics. And, when she really owned who she was and started being an example of that out in the world, those people didn't know how to fit into the equation anymore. So yeah, she has a whole new set of friends, and she's also very selective. She's always been that way though. She used to, before she was like, I don't know, before you could really speak and whatnot, you would say sparkle. That was the barometer, like the barometer.
Very
I mean, she's like, that person has enough sparkle to be around me. So she's very selective.
It's true. I am very selective. This is true.
Well, I want to ask you too. You mentioned Ozempic. What are some of the other quick fixes out there that are often recommended for people to lose weight that are only temporary band-aids, like you were saying, Penelope? Like I'm thinking of gastric bypass surgery. Like, isn't there a stomach stapling thing that some people do so that they can fit less in their stomach? How does that work for people, do you think?
I believe that these surgeries, whether it's stomach stapling, the gastric bypass surgery, or any variation inside of the bariatric world, is concerning. And what I've noticed, because I've worked and coached with dozens of people that have had these surgeries, and although they will have a weight loss, which anybody will have after a big surgery like that, they haven't really looked at the emotional piece that was causing the behavioral problem in the first place, and so they're left really empty-handed because the medical model, as we know, doesn't support lifestyle change. It's just not incentivized. And until and unless we figure out a way for insurance companies to get involved with accountability and educational partners, I don't see a big change happening for the chronic disease reversal epidemic that we're experiencing. And so bariatric patients are no different. And what we also notice is they're then now chronically dehydrated because they can only drink so much water so frequently. So they have to really titrate their water intake, which is a problem. And they also have chronic malabsorption issues. And so they have to take supplements for the rest of their lives that they may or may not be absorbing because their intestines are compromised. So you're signing up for a lifelong setup of ill health because you are, again, altering a very perfect and innate. Our bodies are like works of art. When you really start studying how it works, the nature of your appetite, what even causes you to be hungry, and how the processed food is literally hijacking our survival mechanism because your hunger and your appetite is driving the propagation of the human species. That's how intelligent it is. And these ultra processed foods with the petroleum based food dyes and fake ingredients, they can't even call them foods really, are dumbing all that down. It is somewhat criminal. And it's like you can find these foods in Scandinavian countries, but they're very expensive and people don't really eat them. Americans need to wake up and take full responsibility. It may not be their fault that they're in this situation, but it's definitely their responsibility.
And something you'll notice with people who have maybe gotten the gastric bypass or who are even on Ozempic, you'll notice that most of these people still eat the same food. They just eat less of it. So a lot of people are not strength training, they're not hydrating, they're not eating proper foods. They're eating junk food, actually, the same junk food they used to eat in smaller portions. And Johan Nori actually wrote a book called The Magic Pill, where he goes on Ozempic and he admits that he goes to KFC and he gets the same order he used to when he was 300 something pounds, and he just eats a little less of it. So he's eating the same food. He doesn't work out, or he doesn't work out that often, even though he'd like to try to. He's just one example of a lot of thousands of millions of people who are on this drug not implementing these changes because they're not watched over by people that closely because the doctor only gets 15 minutes with these patients.
Right.
And being that these foods are so concocted and constructed, like you said, Helene, they're like pseudo foods, right? They are made oftentimes also actually with just the right chemical ingredients to stimulate addiction and to make us addicted to them. Some people call them hyperpalatable foods. How is it that any of us can wean ourselves off from them?
100%. We do it every day. We're on the front lines with women who are in the grips of ultra processed food. One of the women that we met recently only goes to the grocery store once a month. I was like, wow, what does she eat? And I started to really think through that and started to really study her. And she's primarily eating ultra processed foods. We know now that 70% of the American children are eating ultra processed food as the majority of their diet. That is concerning. And so weaning yourself off is so simple. It's simple to say. It's a little bit more challenging to do, but if you trust the process, it is literally, you can, in 1 week, you can completely transform your life and turn your health around. And that's what we notice. It's about depending on how much food and how long you've been eating the ultra processed food, it can vary, but at least 3 to 5 days for the sugar addiction to start to transform, right? You get off sugar. First, find the sugar. Where is it hiding? Get rid of those foods. Figure out what you're going to make instead. That whole process can take 3 weeks just to see, and then to decide, and then to resource. Find again that which you can make for yourself, like salad dressings and whatever your whole proteins, your vegetables, and all the things. But it can be just 3 to 5 days that we notice, and sometimes people will get sick. So they'll get what feels like a cold or a flu, but that's really the body's way of detoxing. We've noticed it's very consistent, and then within 2 weeks, really you're free.
Yep.
And our girls aren't looking in the rearview mirror. They've tried a couple of times to eat like the Milky Way candy bar or the cake, and they're just like, oh gosh, it actually doesn't taste good anymore because their taste buds completely rehabilitate themselves. It's miraculous how the human body was just designed to heal it. And this whole Ozempic conversation and external validation, like it's just an example of how we've just been brainwashed that our bodies are not designed to heal themselves, but they do.
They do. 4 years sober from sugar and flour because I never looked back after that. I never wanted to look back. I never needed to.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Dr. Price would be so proud of you, Penelope. You know, he said the displacing foods of modern commerce, he didn't call them addictive at the time, but he could see the deleterious effects on people, indigenous people groups that started shifting over to flour and sugar and vegetable oils and so forth. So, wow, I love that. 4 years sober from that. But what do you say to the people, you two, who say it can't be that easy, or I can't give up my Dominoes or whatever it is? How do you respond to the skeptic who thinks it's going to be too hard to shift?
You don't have to give it up. You just have to learn how to make it in a different way. So I still eat cheeseburgers. You can still have cheeseburgers. You just use different ingredients and you learn how to do that. Like we teach people how to make French fries at home, but we use rutabaga, we use carrots, we use sweet potatoes, and you put them in an air fryer, or you put them in you bake them. You know, there's a way to make your favorite foods, and we have entire books on how to go from that double cheeseburger you love so much to a cheeseburger that will actually give you energy and weight loss. And that's what people they can't even fathom that they could do that at home, cheaper, faster, easier, and better for you with beautiful skin. Like who doesn't want to eat food that gives you beautiful skin? We just weren't taught in school. Like in our society, it's not glamorized to cook at home and make your own food. It's like cooler to go out and get crumble or cooler to go out and get Starbucks, but you can make it at home for so much better and cheaper.
Yeah. And you start bringing it with you and your friends are like, oh, what's that? You know, and they start to notice you're glowing and they start to see that you get energized and you're so positive all the time. And then they want to learn too. And that's really what we've noticed has been happening. And, you know, we make bread out of sprouted mung beans or other sprouted grains and just learning about how to do it so that you're actually looking forward to the food you're making more than going out and doing that thing that is harming you, because it's really harming you. And I underestimated it, even with all the knowledge that I have accumulated. And maybe that had to happen. I'm sorry that it had to happen, Penelope.
I think it all happened for a reason.
Oh, but I mean, I don't wish it on anyone.
Oh, no, it sounds so dark and hard. But going back to what you were saying about learning, Helene, how did you learn about the Westn Price Foundation, and did that inform some of your weight loss protocols?
Oh my gosh, completely. I started studying nutrition obsessively when I had my acne problem in my late teens. And I found at some point on my journey, Sally Fallon's book, Nourishing Traditions, and I just studied it. I studied it for years and I made as many recipes as I possibly could. And a lot of the things she was saying were aligning with the healing traditions that I was learning because I lived in Europe for 10 years in Switzerland, Germany, France, and Greece. And a lot of the things that she was describing in this book, I was witnessing firsthand in the community. I learned to speak the languages fluently and really was deep in their cultures. And so everything was starting to make sense to me with all the studies I was reading as I was getting my bachelor's and master's degree in nutrition and starting to really understand how food is medicine and food is healing and how food can reverse disease. And so things were just lining up. And her book, I especially like the fact that the book was for diet dictocrats because, of course, I'm a rebel and I just loved that. I thought that was so cool and her tone, and I just learned so much, and it just made so much sense. And so I started to integrate a lot of that into my life, and always kept it at the back of my mind when I veered off into. This community that was raw vegan, sprouted raw vegan foods, and for disease reversal. And I know I was there for about 7 years, fully committed and seen amazing, miraculous interventions with major health issues. But then I noticed long term there were some pieces missing to the equation, and the Westn Price methodologies and whatnot helped me to really create a fuller picture. Because I also have some influence in macrobiotics, the traditional Chinese medicine healing modalities, as well as Ayurveda. I have a lot of deep, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of Ayurvedic healing as well, which uses fat to detox, which uses restorative cleansing practices. And so it's just painting this picture of all the possibilities so that we can meet people where they are, wherever they are in their journey with whatever they're ready for, whether it's a black bean brownie, or a stew or, whatever it is, wherever they are, meet them and help them to heal.
That's wonderful. And also, since we were talking about real foods for healing, I just want to let people know. So the Westn Price Foundation has chapter leaders and chapters all around the world, actually. So people can reach out, just go to westnaprice.org/find food or real chapter leaders and our real chapters. And then you find a person near you and you ask them to give you a resource list. You talked about resourcing, Helene, so people can find real food where they live, farmers or farmers markets or places that they can trust to find real food.
That is so important. I hope everyone listening follows up and does that, because that is the first step. And one of my goals in life is not to go to the grocery store. It's just to really support all the farmers. And we have luckily two that live down the hill from our house that we support. And that's where my dollars go to feed our family and our community. And so there's so much power in that. I think we underestimate the power of our purchasing decisions because that's driving everything. And for all the moms out there, you are dictating the GPD. All the money spent is by the moms. And so really want to encourage moms to eat real food, to cook real food, and be the example. Because I didn't know you'd come around. I was on MasterChef. I don't know if you knew that. I was on MasterChef. Like, I'm a really good cook, and Penelope still wouldn't eat with me, for those few years,
for a long time.
But I mean, it's like I'm pinching myself. So moms have hope, because the
Yes.
obesity epidemic is also a pandemic of hopelessness, and there is hope. And I just really pray that everyone listening to this is inspired and ignited to take some action today, because everything counts. Everything really matters. What you think, what you eat, what you say, what you feel.
True. Penelope, I have one more question for you and then a question for the both of you. When you look to the future, Penelope, do you have the passion that your mom does? Do you want to keep helping people regain their health, or what do you see for yourself?
Yeah, well, Mom and I started Step It Up, which is our company where we help women lose weight every day, because I decided, I graduated actually early from high school at 17, and I was like, I need to help women. Like, God gave me this path to help women who are struggling with what I struggled with. And even young girls. There are so many young girls who are trapped in their rooms, who are morbidly obese, who think it's okay, beautiful and healthy because social media told them, and their therapists and doctors. And I know that they're out there, and I feel called to help them and help moms and help women in general, because we deserve health and beauty and vitality, and we need to learn how to get that back. And so now I learned from you, Mom. I'm amazed by you. I never thought that we would be where we are today, but you're like my best friend. So we work together, so that's really interesting. But we also cook together every day. We're in the garden together now. I'm learning the garden from you and sprout in the kitchen and sprout whole grains and dehydrate the grains and revitalize the wheat berries, and just these amazing things I never thought I'd learn, even how to sew. So you've taught me more than school has, actually.
Thank
And
you.
she introduced me to the Nourishing Traditions recipe book, which I'm starting to make some recipes from. I just made the sweet potato cookies recently, and they were so fluffy. But I'm just amazed by the book. I'm so excited to learn from you and all the things that you've learned, and I just want to spend the rest of my life learning from you. I'm so humbled by you, and I know I have so much to learn from you. So
You're gonna make me cry.
I'm just very grateful.
I know I'm going to cry too. So maybe we'll just wrap it up and then we'll go cry together. It's very moving and it's so beautiful. And I'm so happy for you, Penelope, to have regained your health and your energy and your vitality. And you are glowing, and you are as well, Helene. Like, this way of eating and living is so gratifying. And I love that you're helping other people too. And speaking of that, I want to pose to you the question I love to pose at the end. If the listener could just do one thing to improve their health, taking one step in the right direction, what would you recommend that they do? Helene, why don't we start with you, and then Penelope, you can follow up.
Gosh, one thing I would say, really get back in nature. Experience moments of awe every single day. And if you can, get your bare feet on the ground and get your eyes looking at that morning sun and the evening sun. I believe nature has all of the answers. And if you can spend more time committing not to your screens, but to being in nature, your feet on the ground, your hands in the dirt, that you will have revelations. You will increase the bacterial and the microbial integrity of your body, that you will invite power into your cells through that sunlight energy. The nature is not out to get you. The sun is not going to harm you. That really reconnecting with the natural kingdom is the key to everything. And the more we disconnect from that, the more problems we see in our health. So I would encourage people, especially this time of year, to just get out in nature, spend some time getting curious about whatever bugs are in your soil or whatever it is, trees you have in the garden or whatever park you can find close by.
Love it. Penelope, what about you? What would you recommend that they do?
I would say make all of your food at home using whole ingredients, and just do that. If that's one thing you can do, it's going to change your life. It's going to change your skin and your family's life, and just make your favorite foods at home using whole ingredients. And if you don't know how, then learn how, because the world is our oyster. We have more information than we have ever had. We have all these amazing books and recipes that you can find anywhere. You can just research online how to make anything you want. And it's that simple and it's that easy.
Beautiful. Well, Helene and Penelope, on behalf of the Westn A. Price Foundation, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our guests today were Helene Leeds and Penelope Popken. Visit their website, getstepitup.life and stepitup.life to learn more. And I am Hilda Labrada Gore, the host and producer of this podcast on behalf of the Westn A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for today's episode, visit our website, westnaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a recent review from Apple Podcasts. It's short and sweet. S. Today had this to say: I really enjoy this podcast. Highly recommend. S. Today, thank you for taking the 2 seconds it took to write that review. You can do the same thing. It's not hard, and it means a lot to us, and it lets people know the show is worth watching. So please, please, please go to Apple Podcasts, go to ratings and reviews, give us 5 stars or whatever you think is appropriate, and tell people why they should listen too. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well, and remember to keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun.
On behalf of the Westn A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westnaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.